Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online. You're now watching The Moore Show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. Now, for the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. Now, on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Jacque Nelson. Now, Jacque is an inspirational speaker and author. She has co-authored 2 books and numerous audio recordings along with her husband, Donald Nelson, and has presented numerous national and international workshops on living without edges with the Mary Group, a group of non-physical beings who express themselves through Jacque. Jacque Nelson, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is really super, really excited.
It's a pleasure. I say this to a lot of people. It's so true. It's a pleasure to have you on, because once I've got to know a bit about the work that you've done, I was like, this is pretty awesome stuff. Where have you been? But you've been doing this for 17 years. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Wow. Okay. So look, I want to get into some of the teachings for the Mary Group as well, most definitely. Some of the questions here are going to be kind of easy questions. Some are going to be a bit more, these are questions I've kind of gathered here that you've answered in some of your videos, which I found some of the videos that you've done on your YouTube channel very interesting.
Thank you.
And I think, I was just speaking to you off air, I think this is your first interview maybe on YouTube, maybe? Could be.
I think so, yeah, on YouTube, yeah.
Yay, okay, that's pretty cool. All right.
Yeah. We'll ride the new wave together.
We will, most definitely. Well, look, this is an amazing journey that you've been on, both yourself and your partner, Don. Now, just go back to to the early part of the, year 2000. It was started for you in March 2000. You were just living what we would call a normal life?
Yes. Raising 2 children, and my husband, Don, who does all this work with me and is such a huge part of it. We're partners in it, actually. He was a printer, working in a printer shop. I was in human resources, working for an not-for-profit organization that served people with disabilities, and, just kind of living our usual life. And we knew we wanted to do something different. No idea this would be what it was, and are grateful that it was.
I mean, you just can't plan this stuff, can you?
No, you can't.
Not at all. And just to let people know how we got in contact as well, I think that's important. I'm doing a documentary called They Call Us Channelers,
Yes.
and it was through Courtney Amerson that, if I've got the last name right, that connected us. And
Yes.
I always find that when those connections happen, to listen to those connections, I've learned that the hard way, that they've come to you for a reason, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
I did not expect to take more people onto this channeling documentary, but lo and behold, that's been the right thing to do. And, I'm so grateful to have come across you, because, there are so many greatly gifted people like yourselves out there that deserve to have their message, on as many places as possible where that align with your work as well. So just wanted to say that. You and your partner you was with a non-profit, and your partner was working in the printing industry. So what happened? How did this voice come through you?
Well, like I said, we knew we wanted to do something different with our lives. We weren't sure what it was. We kept trying to target in on it. And we thought something as out of the box as maybe running a bed and breakfast, right? So that obviously wasn't it. So my husband actually went to see another person who channels and does some work. And they had suggested to him to kind of find out what it was we were looking at, for he and I to sit down together and meditate together for 5 minutes a day, right? And that worked for me. I mean, that was the magic key, because I'm not good at sitting still and meditating. My husband's been doing that since he was 12 years old, so he is great at that, practiced in that. So it just started, in the first 5 minutes we sat down. The first time I started getting really odd, facial contortions, different energies moving through my body. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. And maybe it's part of this, meditation. The second time it got a lot more pronounced, a lot of body movements, a lot of, kind of shifting in my, I don't know, my awareness coming through. And the third time, they just came blasting all the way through and, sat me up and started moving me around the room and talking and interacting with us. And it was so surprising and yet so absolutely natural, for it to be happening all at once. So really unexpected and completely, of course, if that makes any sense.
It absolutely does, absolutely. And your partner and yourself. Okay, so there was some advice about how to meditate there. So was there any sort of spirituality between you both? I mean, what was there any sort of interest in that subject between you both? There must have been somewhere.
Absolutely. We actually we went to high school together, which was interesting. And
Ah,
then, but he was dating my best friend in high school. So there wasn't any, movement or attraction there. And then we came back together again and we started having a conversation about the book, The Celestine Prophecy. Like this is, years and years later, like 20 years later. And we're both excited about kind of like what some of the concepts and things in that book were, back then. And it sparked a conversation and then sparked a relationship, as we continued to talk. And then actually we started work, we became Reiki together. We started working with different, spiritual guides, kind of looking into, different tracks. So absolutely, we just kind of caught on fire together in kind of the bigger sense and the bigger knowing of what is really life and what's it all about. So yes,
that's really beautiful. So he's kind of taken over the business side, in
he
one
has
sense, yeah.
absolutely, yes.
Because
Thank
you got to wear both hats. Yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah.
a lot of hats.
There's a lot of hats to wear when making something but especially yeah, bringing information like this through as well. Um,
Yes.
okay, okay. Well, how has the family accepted what you do? Kids as well. How are they looking at mum nowadays?
Well, my children now are 25 and 29. So, and yet as kids, they were kind of, there's a little bit of an interesting story if I can tell you about it.
Please,
Our son always kind of had a little bit of fun interacting with them, but stayed away a bit. Our daughter was a little older, so a little bit more cautious about, climbing inside her head and kind of really knowing that deeply about her, which Mary's always so amazingly honoring that they wouldn't have shown me anything she didn't want to be seen anyway.
mm.
Um, but we were going into Madison, Wisconsin for an evening, a question and answer session evening. And she had gone along with us just for the gathering, as people were coming together, and then she was going to go do her own thing with another friend. And some people in the audience asked, well, how do you feel about your mom doing this? And it was the first time she had said it, so it was very interesting. She said, I really don't like it. And they said, well, why not? And they said, because it's really hard for me to look at my mom and not feel her there. She said, the Marys are great, but it's not my mom. So it was like, wow, so that was also part of her hesitation was she didn't like feeling me vanish, in
That's
which, I just go into another space. And now she's terrific. And we're actually collaborating on putting a book together because she's an artist and she has the ability to kind of come inside and pull the images out of my head that I'm getting and put them into illustration to help,
yes,
put this book together. So it's really, really fun.
that's
As far as
beautiful.
my family I come from, I'm the youngest of 8 children, raised in a Catholic religion, although not, overwhelmingly. And I didn't tell them for many, many years.
That's the
I just
difficult
didn't
part,
know if they
yeah.
know where to put it or what to do with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think America's more religious in some aspects than the UK. And
Mhm.
I think that must be difficult coming out to your family that, that this is coming, especially when they start to see it as the work of the devil or when it's a sort of nonsense like
Yes,
that,
yeah,
which religion's great at doing that, let's face it, right?
yes, yes.
Yeah,
I have been
yeah.
called an abomination unto God. We'll say that. Like, wow. No, I have a great relationship with God. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, okay. So how's so yeah, that I suppose how have they accepted you for that? I'm just interested, that's all, because everyone's got a unique journey.
Yeah, actually, it was really beautiful. I waited for a long time, and then it came to a place where, because one of the things that Mary talks with us about that is such a kind of a fracturing thing that we do with ourselves and our relationships with ourselves and with life and the world and others is hiding. When we hide, when we modify, when we are not us in our full glistening to some capacity anyway, all the time. And so I really felt that it was starting to really hinder my own path and my own way. And I wanted to find a way to share it with them that, again, I didn't want to insert something into their life that felt dishonoring or disruptive to them. So since there are so many of them, I did choose our, modern day technology. And I sent them all an email at the same time. I thought it's best for them all to get it. And really, I got a variety of responses back. Every one of them was very loving.
That's
And
nice.
and really overall, it was basically, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. I really don't understand it. And yet, you know, we love you, and you're a lovely person. So, it must be okay. So, very interesting.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And did you at any point or your partner struggle with what was happening to you or what was coming through you?
It's interesting. I should call him in here and have him sit in here. He's in the other room. Um, Not a struggle really, but it because, like I said, Don has been kind of he's done meditation, he's done other things, and you're welcome to join me, honey. Um, since he was really young, and he read, Abraham Hicks' book, their first book. He did the little exercise they put in the back of the book, to call in your own, open your own inner guidance or come into your own connectivity. He did all the practices, and I just, kind of like moved along in my life and do what I do. He's much more, um, probably consciously dedicated to kind of playing things through. I kind of I don't know how to explain it. It just kind of becomes a part of me. So then when the Marys came through me, we would laugh at, he's the one who did all the work, and then they came through me. He's like, what,
I
you
I
get
I think it's
to do.
beautiful the setup that you both got. I think having each other just helps so much in getting the work out, and because it's almost, well, it is a full-time job, isn't it, doing this in a
It
sense.
is. It
Yeah, it,
is.
it, it really is. So to have what you guys, because I mean that we're all on a different path. Some of us are on our own doing this, and maybe
Yes.
that will change one day. But we're all walking different
Hmm. Truly.
experiences, yeah, and different
Yes.
truths, yeah, yeah, um
What I,
yeah,
what I will say about that also, if I might, though,
please.
is it is. I mean, he does all of those pieces that work for him. I do the piece where the Marys come through, and truly though, he's a big part of that energy. He's as much a part of what the Marys are all about as I am, and he really
Okay.
holds the space for me to be able to do this work, and I'm just so grateful for it. And so often when we are with an audience and they feel, the connection between Don and I, and the connection between the Marys and Don and me, and of course everybody that they move with,
Yes.
they feel such a sense of beauty in what partnership can be, and particularly partnering in this sort of work. So it's
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, absolutely. I smile only because I'm like, yeah, you always see yourself box shifting or doing something completely different, like like what a normal business used to be like, and then it goes into this kind of area, which is it's just so rewarding.
Yeah.
There's always that part of you that's like, is this how it's going to be?
Yes.
Is this it? But it's so cool
Yeah.
because every day is amazing when you're doing what you love.
It is. It's a big choice though, because you really
That's what I'm
are
saying.
agreeing to really change your life, and
Yeah.
to really, your playmates change, your the way you live, the way you do your world, the way the world does or does not receive you. It all shifts, and it is a choice. And grateful that we made it. And yeah, if he hadn't been on board with this,
Mm.
I don't know how that would have worked.
Well, that's why I've kind of wanted to get you to round to saying that. We're not saying that, but I feel that for you as well. Definitely
Yeah,
in your story. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Actually, he made I hope I get this line straight, because um, he talked about writing a book. We so often have either the husband or the wife or the partner or whatever the relationship is, the daughter, the parent come and they're having trouble with their significant relationships because they're really about opening and expanding and the other isn't. And so he talked about writing a book called We Were Fine When You Left. Like when you went out to explore all of this, we were fine before that. Now you're like changing, and what happened?
Oh yeah, I do interviews with people where they've had that issue, where, or even friends in my life where they've, coming out to try to explore their spirituality, yet their partner's just not into it,
Yeah,
and it is very difficult. But it's maybe, people come together for that yin and yang experience as well,
yes,
rather than looking
yes,
at it as wrong or right. Um,
yes.
yeah,
Hmm.
so okay, getting into the Mary group then, just
Hmm.
very briefly. Um, a group of ancient beings, is that one way of saying them?
Yeah, that would work. Yeah. There's it's specifically like nine different, very significantly differing energies. Three of them have not at all experienced a earth or a physical lifetime. The other six have. So they're really relatable to absolutely every sort of being. It's very interesting. Every person, and when they work together, they're always working together. It comes out like it's one voice, obviously. Although I had one experience where one person felt the layers of them, which was really cool.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
would work. It's so interesting to try to describe it.
Yeah, well, it's describing the undescribable, isn't it? In a
Yes.
sense, that there is no words for the words we're trying to use. So being in that space of not having the right words for it right now, do you think they're aware of the groups that other people channel?
Yes, they have actually noted that from time to time because they're just so amazing when they work with every person. They show up for you, like on your behalf, and they move with what you're connected with, and they just go there, and and that's some of their teaching. They help us to understand how to do that also. And yet, yes, they have. They've tapped in on differing. I think I spoke once actually in a previous interview that Cryon, I think.
Yes.
Um, uh, and I think it's Cryon, and Cryon can get pretty serious. Or the beings that he or, and they'll make a face and they'll go very serious, and they'll grin. They it's all love, but it's so they can tap into those other energies of differing connections. They've offered that it's coming through in every possible way right now, through every avenue and every mood and every way of connecting so that everybody can have access to this connection.
Yes, because I mean, I've got Paul Selleck coming on tomorrow for an interview, and he talks about connecting to a group as well.
Mm-hmm.
Not a named group, but then again, yours isn't really named. It's called the Mary Group, just as a name for us to be able to have
Yes.
some connection
Yeah.
with. Some don't have a name. We mentioned Courtney there. She doesn't have a name for her channel neither.
Mm-hmm.
It's just which I think is just as beautiful as anyone else's the way of doing it. Um,
Absolutely.
I wonder if there's some connection between them all somewhere. Um, yeah, I always wonder about that. Where are they aware of each other on different levels? Maybe.
From what I've gained, in working with Mary over all these years, absolutely, just
Yeah,
like we are.
just like we are. Yeah.
It's
Mm.
it's everything is connected, and one of the things that Mary talks about, is one of the things they're here for is that we're in this transitionary state from the practice of separation and from the age of separation to the age of union, and opening back up into what we, not back, they always say not back, but opening into what we actually are. And they'll talk about how nature, if you want to understand what union is, look to nature, really feel into nature, and that nature is aware that it is every particle is connected, and when you can feel into that, we can, whether it's physical or non-physical,
Right.
the solid spaces, there's spaces between. When you let yourself open up and sense into that, there's really, there's really nowhere we're not touching and that isn't touching us. And So as far as in the, that spiritual realm, or, what people look at it as, absolutely it's all interconnected, because it's all for one movement of exchange and sharing and connection and love,
Yeah.
excuse me, and interaction. There's nowhere they can't go, and there's no like closed doors. We segregate ourselves, and when we put boundaries and borders on things, and it's just so not necessary. Mary will always say, imagine this as the doorway of the home of you, and notice there's not a door on it nor a need for it. It's an opening, and it's a welcoming. And you also have ways of knowing, how to interact when you're in good, healthy relationship with yourself, with everything else you're interacting with.
Yes.
So I would say absolutely they know of each other.
Yes. Thank you for that. Thank you very, very much for the explanation as well. Now, one of your YouTube videos that you've got, and we're going to just link your YouTube channel up in the description box below. I found really interesting, because you just started doing these videos, but I've got to go back actually here. But you've been doing this for 17 years, so you've been keeping busy elsewhere apart from making videos, haven't you? I mean, you've built your platform up, haven't you? Yeah. I mean, 17 years, you must have done a lot.
Absolutely. We have. Because I was raising children, we were raising children. One of my things was that's a primary experience in my life. So we're staying pretty local, We have, traveled around the country. We've actually taken groups to other countries.
Wow.
But most of the work before we brought, the magic of technology into it, is pretty, Illinois, Wisconsin, and then, going out west a bit, maybe down to Florida. As far as live groups are concerned. But yeah, I think I got off track there.
Yeah, just where you've been for the 17 years. Yeah, you've been all over. And do you feel that your work is going to expand now as well? Have you seen a growth in what you're doing as well?
Absolutely. And yes, the work keeps expanding. That's one of the amazing things, is there's never not more to kind of really expand into and learn about and grow in ourselves with and grow in the world with. And it is expanding, and it does feel like, this feels like this really rich, wonderful time for all of this to come out. Mary has actually called this year in our world the time of the prolific opening and the grand gathering.
Right.
And, when I feel into anything that's occurring, you can feel that in that, the rising up, and the connecting of things that are occurring. And so, yes, we did just we do Facebook Live posts now, which become those YouTube videos. We're kind of catching ourselves up with, let's just do it. We're all the way in. Let's do it. Let's spread it. Our desire is, if every ear could hear what the Marys are offering, the love and connection and peace and awareness and understanding that can come to the world is just amazing. So we're ready to go anywhere and everywhere.
Well, that's a really good point you make there, and that's a really good point just to bounce from, actually, what you just said there. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could just spread it out to the ears and the eyes of the people that it's going to help? Now, obviously, not every soul's ready for this information, are they? And is that frustrating sometimes? Like, we've got we've got some truths here that are really good, that could really help you, but you're just where you're at.
I actually believe that my personal belief is that we are all ready. We might not know we're ready. What some people might not be ready for is the source, that it comes from, that I'm a channel, we actually have had people who absolutely love what Mary brings through and cannot, accept that it's, coming from, where it's coming from or what it's about, because of, whatever confinement they live within themselves. I just feel like some of that stuff is starting to crack open. And Mary describes it as, like if you took a Mobius, right, an infinity symbol.
Yes.
And you've got the energy of separation, the energy of union.
Yeah.
And you start just gently bringing those together. And if you twist them like this, just a little bit, and that center starts to come apart, then you push and it pops open into this sphere of what, what actually is the energy and movement of all existence, is that sphere of energy, that of union.
Yep,
So,
absolutely agree with you. And maybe it comes through the channels like it does, or automatic writers, because it allows people to question it. Is it real? Is it not? Because otherwise, if they just came to everyone, is it game?
mhm,
Is it game over in this reality that we're having right now? I mean, this is we're supposed to have this earthly experience, aren't we?
mhm,
And
mhm.
isn't that sort of giving it all away? That actually, if all the answers were there, what this reality is about, how can we have this experience that we're having? Yet some of the
Yeah,
answers are there,
nothing.
aren't they? In some
Right,
respects.
absolutely. But and that's, if nothing's stimulating our curiosity, though, so that is, if one of the things Mary says is ask questions, don't question. So if you don't, if even if you don't believe, ask questions, be willing to be curious, so that there is more room for growth. There is more expansivity of who we are, and what we can move with. One of the things they also talk about is to move with the energy of, like, if maybe I'm talking to somebody who's very religious and they're rejecting, or they're afraid, which, I'm sorry, I'm sorry anybody ever feels afraid of me. I'm not sorry, apology, just it's unfortunate. Um, and yet Mary talks about when we can look at that as we're differing than one another, instead of that we're different from one another. The different causes a severing and a block and a distancing, and the differing can open a curiosity, and you can ask questions, and then you still get to choose. And I think that's what people need to, it's helpful to remember and to realize, is even if I'm talking with somebody about something that I don't have agreement with, or doesn't register for me, or doesn't work for me, I get to choose. I don't have to be afraid of it. We're all choosers. So I can know about all the things that people are moving with, and then decide.
Okay, well, thank you for that, and sticking with evidence still, because
Mhm.
it's just the thing I come across with a lot of people sometimes. There is it, especially those people in the TV world, and one of the the questions, I suppose, is how do we blow people's minds to say that there's something in this, or are we there to do that?
um, it's so funny. What came up in me is, I think we're all here to blow each other's minds, in whatever way. And in that blowing, though, is to, like, get us past the usual boundaries. Mary's whole thing is, about edgeless. Our book is Living Without Edges. It's, stepping into that step beyond, that breath beyond, that awareness that doesn't know itself yet, or that we don't know yet. And so, yeah, I think we need to challenge ourselves and one another all the
Mm,
time. And
mm.
if we respond to that with curiosity, then there's somewhere to go. If we respond to that with closing, there's nowhere to go. Like Mary says, without curiosity, nothing would exist, right? So,
Absolutely.
um, yeah.
Well, I mean, there are those that have come my way. That's always challenging me with this subject, and they're like, well, come on, why can't we bring through the cure to cancer then, or
Mhm,
something meaningful like that? And I'm like, well, great question, but
mhm.
maybe we're not supposed to.
Well, yeah, and my first response is, what says we couldn't, or we haven't, and that, we're just, it's being blocked, or not everybody's paying attention. And in the are we not supposed to, is, we're all here to have our own experience and to create our own design of life and our own exploration. And so, it really is that one person will move through something very differently than the next person, same set of circumstances. And that's coming from living from the inside out, or from the outside in. What are we agreeing to have be our boundaries, and what are we not? There's people who cure themselves from cancer all the time, and
That's
there's people
true.
who don't. And
No, that's
it
true.
doesn't mean one is a win or a lose, or a pass or a fail. It's all experience, and it's all about really climbing into that experience and having it, and being with yourself in it, and with the experience itself, and
Yes.
and and moving and experience. I don't know. There's a lot to it. It's
No,
it's
no,
very
that's so true. Of when when someone does have something like that, for example, I just mentioned, the question was about,
Mhm.
the cure to cancer. It's the experience they go through and the family goes through when having that, experience. I mean, it affects everyone. It's as though that experience is not just for the person going through it. It's for the people around them as well.
experiencing the person.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And I know that sounds a bit cruel, but I just see it like that sometimes. From a soul perspective, that's what I'm saying.
Absolutely, yes. And the Marys actually have spoken about that, is that it really is each person, if you're impacted by it, that's your experience with it. And there's gifts there for you, and there's possibilities there for you. There's so much, to explore and to move with.
Yeah.
And and they spoke with somebody one time who, lost a child
Oh yeah.
through an
Yeah.
accident that was young, and what's that about? And if you can actually open to kind of discovering what it's
Mm,
about, it doesn't take away that painfulness of losing somebody, but if you can really come into growing and understanding more through looking to see what it is about, instead of being lost to it.
yeah.
It's just, there's so much to speak to in that.
Yeah.
um, and somebody having a great experience, it goes all the way around. I think one of the important things is that we remain with ourselves and with the world as we move through something, whether it's really, really difficult or
Mm,
whether it's really exciting. I have
mm,
a friend who's moved through cancer and had so many impacts, and did, at one point pass. She still hangs around all the time. And she had an amazing life that touched many, many people,
mm,
some because of the cancer and some not because of the cancer,
mm, mm.
and every life she touched was imperative
Uh,
that it got touched.
and what if, for one person you give them the cure to cancer for them, and it's that their contract is they're not supposed to be around. They're supposed to
Mm-hmm.
go. No matter what you
Absolutely.
give that body, it's going to reject it. It's not going to play along with the normal. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, because it's, yeah, I'll share with you what might feel like controversial, or really calming, or like, oh
Yes.
wow, some people are like, wow, that makes sense. Is that
Mm,
Mary talks about that when we come into this world, we have three windows, and they won't talk to us about where our windows are, if we've had our windows, because that would be influence our experience. And yet there's three windows of differing durations where we can stay or go. And sometimes you're just at the end of that third window, and your soul knows, as much as your personality or your being might say, there's still this thing I want to do, or this
mm,
person I want to love or
mm.
see, or, that thing. Your soul knows it's just really important. This is your last stretch, and
Yeah.
it's time for
Yeah.
the oneness, for everything.
Yeah.
And you go. And for me, it makes sense why, somebody might attempt to take their own life and it doesn't work.
Yes.
Um, Soul said, nope. It's not, this experience you're having is interesting and important, and that it's not time to leave. And another person might, go not having anticipated leaving, but it was. So it doesn't. I guess for me, it helps it not all feel as random, and feel more in the continuum of who we are and what the whole story is of our life expression.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And yeah, when I channel, sometimes I'm more, there's always that part of me that that someone's going to ask a question that I have, that where's that information going to come from, in a sense, because
Hmm.
you think it's just beyond any think possible for that to come through without that answer, but something always comes through, doesn't it?
Yes. Yes, it does. It does. It's delightful. It's amazing, actually. Yeah. Yeah, something always comes through. And people get to decide whether they let it in or not, and what they do with it. I mean, that's the gift of it, too.
Yes,
You
it
know,
absolutely is. Yeah.
yeah. We're all such amazing creatures, and there's all this stuff to create with. And so it's just, breathe in and see, you know?
I like that. I like that. And when you are channeling as well, are you quite consciously channeling, would you say? Do you remember what's been said mostly?
I always say I'm kind of like the Marys talk about, from the loft view. And I feel I've told people, they say, well, where do you go when you're channeling? Because I go out, the Marys speak, I'm not involved. I'm watching, everything is differing from where I am. It's very energetic. It's very, and when I listen to a recording of something, it's a very different experience for me than when I was with them. And I tell people, I think I go where I'll be when I'm dead, like because there's no personality in it, and yet it's so fascinating and interesting. So if you talk to me about what was said, I can recall some of it. Of course, I absorb the teachings and the understandings and the stories myself from my own life experience. But I don't completely disappear. So I'm observing from just a very different conscious space of
Yes.
myself.
Yes,
Hmm.
absolutely. So just moving this forward, and thank you for everything you've shared so far, by the way. Um, Obviously, there's two books, and we've just been mentioning. Well, I mentioned the first book, "Living Without Edges: Teachings
Hmm.
from the Loft View."
Yeah.
Now, w- just tell us about bits about that book as well, and something from that book that really was an aha moment for you as well.
Well, the book is I will say now a smattering. The Marys have literally brought through countless teachings, and it's always growing and moving. And so that book is kind of speaking about some of those teachings and then applying like an experience in an exchange or a conversation they were having with somebody to show direct application into life,
Okay. Yep.
so that people can go, oh yeah, I get that. I
Mm,
understand that.
mm.
Um, wow, anything specific from the book? There's so many teachings in there. And I could have written several more volumes by now, although the writing for the books is not my favorite thing to do, so that's why there's not a lot of them.
Right. Yes, of
Um,
course.
Gosh, I'm trying to think. I guess really that, just the whole idea of living without edges,
Yeah.
which is living into the expandability and the possibility of who we are, and that everything, begins in vibration. And when we bring ourselves to it and live from the inside out, then we begin to bring our own print and our own unique gift. Breathing your own breath is a big teaching that the Marys offer, and it's we come into this world in that first breath. We are the remembering and the knowing and the connectedness and the expansivity of who we are and will be and have been all at once. And that's in that first breath, and then it's union. And then in second breath we run into that energy of separation, and we start to try to figure out how to exist in the world and how to like suck that breath in and to replicate what's already in the world instead, and so that we can figure out how to be there. And so coming into remembering to bring your own breath through, and the gift of that with every other person on the planet is that when we can show up as who we are, when we can understand that's a self-fullness and not a selfishness, and that it allows us to remember we're an add to every room and every conversation and every moment and every exchange. When we can really arrive and be there with ourselves and with one another and cause that opening of invitation for others to do it also, that's that edgelessness of the full possible of what we are and what life is. And when we start showing up that way, and we continue showing up that way, it's that's what we really are capable of being in this world together. And all the other stuff, the nonsense, the unnecessary of the conflict and the fear and the threat and all those things, they don't matter. They fall away because there's just not a space for them. It's just, so I would say as far as that book is concerned, it's just, it's some differing ways and tools and teachings to start to open that truth inside of us to live out loud.
Thank you so much for that. And I've got to go back to one of your videos as well because one that struck me. I don't know why I keep referring to these videos, but I think they're really good. What you've done, and one was about happiness,
Ah,
and
yeah.
you know, I'm like, oh God, that's so key, isn't it? I mean, it seems so You know, that's things with some challenge. People say it's the same thing over and over again. I'm like, yeah, but we never listened in the first place. So you know, so
Yes.
you know, it's true though, isn't it? You know what I mean? We don't. And when it comes to happiness, well, it's delayed happiness, isn't it? It's almost like we're not entitled to be happy for some people.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And it's such a natural state that yeah, we learn we have to earn almost, you know.
Right? Yeah.
Um and really if you think about it, I've seen people go, "Well, why do you get to be happy?" Or why, because it's available, you get to have it too, and it's just about opening up. It's interesting, Kevin, and so many things fly through me. And I
Of
was I
course.
was just at a relative's wedding over the weekend, and
Oh,
in a Catholic
nice.
church,
Yeah.
and they did the readings. I grew up with all these readings,
Yep.
and there's the piece where of not being worthy. To help me to know I'm not worthy, or that about worthiness. I'm worthy to have like a prayer. And I thought, wow, for me, what I've really grown into knowing is that it's more about, you know, that we are worthy.
Yes.
We're worthy of
Okay.
everything, and automatically, and not because we've proven or done something. It's because of who we naturally are and what we naturally are. And so happiness, absolutely. It's a a no-brainer kind of just allow ourselves to open and be what we actually are, and it's just there. And it's just amazing. And so I would think in prayer, it being, please help me to remember that
Right.
I am this worthiness, and so is everything else, and everyone else. And when we can remember that in ourselves and remember it in one another, and that happiness, the simplicity of happiness, can breathe with that. It's an amazing thing.
Absolutely, it is, and I think that comes as well from being able to be your true self and being, doing the things that you really enjoy. Where most people say, "Yeah, but I've got to have this job because it's the only thing that I've got right now to, pay the roof over the head and everything else." And I always say, well, actually, yeah, I'm not saying to leave that. I'm saying, what would do you give yourself any time back to do that which you love at any part of the day?
Yes.
For any moment, and most people don't. And I really found fascinating with yourself was Mary's takes on the law of attraction, because it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different, which is always interesting. Different is
Yes, it is. And what is, I would ask you, what are you speaking to specifically about that, or what's
um
really striking with that?
well, it there was something that came across in one of the videos, and I was like, oh, that's really really good. And I'm just looking through my notes now. You just got me on the. I'm like, God, what was it? What was it? It was maybe the do's and don'ts. Maybe that's what it was. Um, and there was something that was said that in that in respect to the law of attraction as well. Well, okay, let me ask you from this perspective, because I can't write this. Yeah, my
Are
memory's.
you speaking about what do you want?
Yes, there you go. Yes, you've. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's it.
Hmm.
That's it.
Yeah, because they talk about that. A lot often Marys will translate the energies that a word in our world has taken on. Excuse me, now compared to like its original energy. What it is. And so they have talked about want, and they see the want of, in this world of separation, with that ache. And they've talked about how often when you say I want this, what is getting translated is I'm over here and it's over there and I don't have it. And all that comes back is, okay, you're just stating that, that truth of your experience, right? So I want that doesn't really actually create it or bring it to you. So they looked at want, and want in its original form is actually, in union, is open. It's an opening.
That's the.
And so
That's it.
when you are looking at want, when you remember it, and all it really takes is just going, I choose to remember that, like in that first breath place of the remembering of, I'm connected to everything. And then you say, well, I do open to feeling my happiness, to being my happiness, to connecting with things that feel inspiring to me. When you said, somebody says, well, I have to do this job and it's what gets me through, then at least take yourself with you and show up there, like open to being with you every day, and to leaning in and being part of your every moment experience. And so then instead of want that's an ache, that's actually a reconfirming of what I don't have or what I don't want. Because the marrieds would laugh. They'll say, what do you want, to somebody? And the person will go through these lists of everything they don't want. And the marrieds will just listen with a grin, and then they'll say, and what do you want? They'll just ask again. And it is, what are you open to, though? What do you truly open to? Because that opening is a choice. And it springs and births a conversation of an interaction with the universe, and with everything that we are within our own beings, which is also expanded into the universe. And so I open, and it has to be real. You can't just say it. Excuse me. When you move into, I open to that
Yes.
connectedness, or to my possible, or to whatever it is, then it can come. Then now you're in a conversation that's a place to go.
I'm so glad we got there. Sorry that I when you asked me there a second ago, I wasn't too sure, but that was it. It was the being open,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's so different to a lot of other teachings, or
Mm-hmm.
or it's an add-on to the other teachings. It's like a level up, right?
Yes.
I wouldn't say it's something to add on to it, to make it, to keeping it all simple, not keeping it complicated, but to
Mm-hmm.
being open to what comes to you,
Yeah.
to being open to allowing things to happen as well, to being open to love as well,
Absolutely.
in the present moment, in your decision of what you're trying to do for yourself,
Yeah.
and that of the decision. Being open, you could use that, paraphrase it in so many ways.
Absolutely. Yes. And it's a vibration. It's a feeling, and you feel when it's pulsing, and when it's there. And
Right.
because Mary, one of the things in the book is but. When you say but, they say it's a roadblock. So when you say, I really, really want this, but, or I'd like to have, but, they say, here's the thing: everything that came before the but falls down, and everything that came after the but is what you're actually creating through, right? So it's like,
Right.
I'd really like to be happy, but I have all this and this and this. Well, all that you're creating from is what comes after the but, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's when they talk about opening things with an and it's not just changing the word, it's changing the energy. And so then it is, I would really like to change what I do with my life every day. And it gives yourself a signal to actually reach into a whole other space for what comes after that, and
Yeah.
has more possible in it
Yes.
than the
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Thank you. And the main theme coming through from the mirror is, from as just as an observer for myself, right? You're living it, right? You can tell us, but it's love. It has to be love.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And when the Marys are in audience, it's really beautiful, because so often that's, people feel as though they have just been washed with the original love and loving, and that it opened it inside of them to be washed with their own love and loving.
Hmm.
And that's what it is. It's in the center of absolutely everything in existence. And when we can remember that and have a particle of that open inside of us as we interact, and then remember that that's what's in the center of everything else, your life changes.
Absolutely. Well, and let's just remind some people out there who may be like, this Mary, and it's a very interesting material. But let's just, people that have come to you have felt renewed, inspired, and a sense of passion for self and life. They've transcended all limiting practices and behavior. They've had
Mm-hmm.
unprecedented emotional and mental clarity. That sounds great. Deep
Yeah.
understanding of the weaving and the flowing of creating, living an empowered life, creating, loving the self, breathing, and as we said, and living from the inside out. That's just
Mm-hmm.
some, feedback from some
Mm-hmm.
people. So
Mm-hmm.
that's important, because the feedback's always good, isn't it?
Yes,
When it's
that's
helping people.
mm-hmm.
But that's really beautiful, that feedback. Really
It
beautiful.
is. And one of the things that people say to us repeatedly also with the Marys is that when you work with them one on one, or even when they're, speaking with you, it's so personal. They come into you. It's they so clearly move with you for your what is, because what your desires are going to be different than the person next to you.
Yeah.
And they can help you open that space you're looking to open, or whatever it is you're looking for. So that's why those comments, come all over the board too, of what are the differing things that can occur. They partner with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you must have changed a lot. You must have shifted a lot yourself, both you and Don, in this work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And still are,
And still are, yes.
never stops. So, tremendously shifting. And that's when people have said, what's the most thing that's most different about your lives? It's like every possible particle and aspect,
Yeah.
We arrive so differently, and still every day, there's more to expand with. One of the things Mary's really, really teaching now is releasing the against energy. So, and really stepping into, the with energy, as they call it. So and they talk about our translators, which is that space in us that translates absolutely all information that's coming in or going out or moving around inside. And when you take the against out of that translator, how very differing everything is, and how open your path and your way and your manifesting gets when that's released.
Yes.
And it's in so much.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. God, so many questions. We're at the end of the interview here. This is not fair, right? We
could go forever.
Can we just create a bit of time? Yeah. I mean, I've purposely not got you to channel because I wanted to speak to you about this, because that is a mirror to everyone else, what they can achieve by just embracing these teachings as well. Well, going with what feels right, only go with what feels right. But it's all in the proof is in the pudding, as they say. And okay then, your website.
www.themarygroup.com.
Okay, wonderful. We've been putting your books, and the website's been going on throughout the screen, throughout this interview as well. What would you say right now is the most important message to the audience, do you think?
Oh, wow. Say yes. And every day, and what, lean in. What can I be? What is my possible? And not from a achy place, from a real question. Because when you really ask yourself these questions and you have that yes, you'll answer you and you'll hear it. And, if it startles you or you're not sure, or you don't know what to do, then be honest with yourself about it, because your being already knows the pace and the way to move with you. Befriend that and move with it and lean in and yeah, absolutely ask yourself lots of questions and let go of the questioning. It's total against energy.
Absolutely.
And just learn and expand. Lean in and it's all available for all of us, everything. And create, be curious. So much. I'd like to say so much, and yet.
Well, Jackie, I'm sure when I see you, when I film the documentary, we will try to squeeze in another interview there, most definitely. And this time we will speak to the Marys as well.
That'll be great.
That'll be a different type of interview. I can't wait to see you and your family with my producer Marcelo, who's going to come on location as well. And I just want to say, just thank you so much for joining us today and for shining your light in the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care, Evan. Thanks for having us.
Well, we've come to an end on today's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests by going to themoreshow.com, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.